WTOP News Time 721.
Well, President Obama, in his State of the Union address last night, said, "I don't quit." And he challenged both houses of Congress to work with him and accomplish some goals this coming legislative session. Joining us live now, Arizona Republican Senator John McCain. Senator, we thank you for coming on with us this morning. What did you make of the president's speech, and do you think Republicans and even Democrats will work with the president?
Well, we've been offering to do that for a year and have never been involved in any serious negotiations. They've tried to pick off a Republican or two has sort of been their tactics, but never to sit down in serious negotiations. And I say that as a person who has been engaged in many truly bipartisan negotiations over major issues over the years. So I hope that the president would have said is that, look, I heard the message from the people of Massachusetts with the election of Scott Brown, and we'll start over on health care, and we'll do it in a bipartisan fashion. I wish that he had said, I'm going to veto every one of these pork barrel earmarks, rather than saying they're going to move the earmarks onto a web page. Earmarks and pork barrel projects are corrupting here, and the president knows that very well. And finally, when he said he was going to have a spending freeze, in the next breath, literally, he wants another, quote, jobs bill, another stimulus bill, which the last one we were guaranteed that unemployment would be at a high of 8% if we passed it, and we now have a debt and deficit of historic and incredible proportions.
Senator, the people listened last night to the president. They are hearing what you're saying this morning, and we're going to be talking with Steny Hoyer in less than 10 minutes. We'll hear a Democratic perspective, and no doubt what they're hearing are considerably different views about what the president said, what his intent may be. And I'm wondering if all politicians, regardless of party affiliation right now, aren't sensing that there isn't a bankruptcy that Americans view when it looks at our government and its ability to solve our major problems. Everyone, you and everyone else who is elected, gets elected to solve these problems, and then the poor American people look at all of these problems worsening virtually year by year with no solutions and continued disagreement and gridlock.
Well, again, I go all the way back to 1983 when Tip O'Neill and President Reagan sat down together and we fixed Social Security, which was about to go bankrupt. There have been a long line of bipartisan negotiations and agreement since then, but it takes two to tango. My friend, if you're not going to have people in on the takeoff, you're not going to have them in on the landing.
Well, he did say last night, if you've got ideas, I want to hear them. I want to hear them. Are you going to let him hear them?
And I say with great respect to the president, he hasn't been hearing them. We've said we want medical malpractice reform. We want to go across state lines for insurance, get insurance of our choice. We want reward wellness and fitness. We want health savings accounts. We have a long list of ideas that we've been trying to get inserted or at least considered in the legislation. Best example, what's a major contributor to the cost of health care? Defensive medicine, because of the problems with doctors finding themselves in court. It adds hundreds of billions of dollars to the cost of health care. But the trial lawyers have such enormous control over the Democrat Party, they won't consider it. And then we get into the unsavory vote buying, which is bribery, whether it be the corn husker kickback or the Louisiana purchase or the deal that the other Senator Nelson cut for Florida. The union deal is an outrage. Why should union members be favored just because they're members of unions over ordinary citizens? Americans reject that kind of process.
Over the years, redistricting has created districts that are less diverse, less mixed, more solidly liberal Democratic or conservative Republican, and that means campaigns have to please that one particular base. Is that a problem that can be overcome?
Well, I would like to see a system like we have in Arizona where it's an objective panel that does the redistricting, but obviously, as you know, it doesn't affect the Senate.
Right.
American public opinion polls say to the president, stop on health care, start over, and we want want to start over with them. I didn't hear that message from the president last night, which means he hasn't heard the message from the American people.
I guess as I listened to you this morning, I wonder, as a lot of people must be wondering, will there be bipartisanship in our country? Will we be able to overcome those differences in order to solve our collective problems?
Well, let me say, I think on national security, both on Iraq and Afghanistan, there has been bipartisan support. The president's proposals for small businesses, which we wish he had proposed a year ago, but we're glad that he has now, I think is broad bipartisan support. There's areas where we can find common ground. But I want to emphasize again, I have been part of a lot of negotiations over the years. That means sitting down across the table with the Republican and Democrat and working out agreements. What this administration has tried to do is jam through legislation and try and pick off a Republican or two. That's not bipartisanship.
Senator, always happy to have you on. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
Senator John McCain with us this morning talking about the State of the Union address.